So it's the same what remains in the morning when we wake up and watch the state of the world, and we realize when we see SpaceX and Starlink announced 125th mission of deployment of another quite 20 satellites, 30 satellites, times 152, only 17 satellites. Anyway, it's a complete coverage, like a Dyson sphere ready for communication, and it serves as a global transport into the 21st century that you know or not, and may be happy with or not. And beyond this, we wrote today, if we continue to get out of this home. So it's one mission a day and it's already the 29th today. And it's, so of course the world is awful and war, and it's so big, and the war happens, and of all there is to stop them, what's to realize the dimension and the scale of the events, because as much as everyone's ordinary life is to avoid events of gravity in their path, so that no accident can happen to them, and so that we could master safety of our steps one after the other, with the streets and the dimension of the city and the encounters and the engagements and the words we say and the acts we do. This is all for the human social realm, which is very, at the same time, guarded with stupid challenge response, adaptative nonsense people employ all the time to deceive each other from the desire they have to collide into a common emotion. They attempt always to decry the responsibility for the denial to the others or to the exterior, and to any exterior possible, the inclusion that would connect to an end-size emotion that could lead another type of envision to be made regarding humans on Earth and their problems. And from this distance of such an already we know, as if technically space-time is not fundamental, nor space nor time are, which means the only element remaining is the void, and in the continuum of the void gets another dimensionality. It's not even another horizon, it's another dimension, not another dimension of the 27. It requires to be folded one over the others to encapsulate the last mathematics they need to be to figure it out, the curls of this fine sculpting of space-time itself. And now we know dark energy is accelerating the expansion space-time, we now have a matrix to measure what's bigger, and it's the same relativity size, so don't even think you could ever notice dark energy and the expansion of the universe at the scale we are living in, although there are quantum mechanisms that allow to think that notably memory can escape through kind of, and it's the question of how it is always taken back to the social realm, which is the plague. If you want to think of a thought experiment and project your mind into the end of the universe as to understand the beginning and then how it goes from point A to Z and to what point B you could scale your measurement to be certain, be able to count for what scaling with what else in the universe to be able to begin to see the infinite possibilities of communication through interscaling. Interscalability is a concept that comes back to inter-scale elements, the ones. And so it's so vast, and it's so real. If it was this state so far ago, now imagine that we had a glimpse at it. It has circled back, yes and no, by a continuum of the void. So it's a theoretical continuum. We could try and find, for instance, continuums at the limit. If one element is arbitrarily now at this point, we cannot do it, so we have to imagine right away. If one element is removed from the density, then it becomes a lesser degree density. If density is attached to complexity, it immediately decreases. It makes an n-1 type of universe. And then we can say, if it makes an n-1 at the stage where n is considered an ensemble, it equals removing one n from the equation ensemble. There was, it exists x plus l plus n1 plus n2 plus n3 plus n n plus n1, say, across this ensemble, and we have a tendency to make always a differential of an integral, and to take the square root of this to show 2n equals 0 plus 1, or 1 plus 1, and we choose always 1 plus 1 or 1 plus 0 equals 1 equals 1 plus 0. And this is the classical algebraic invention of what if we change one parameter, if I had all negative numbers coming from the assumption that would be an essence of infinite somewhere, finding the singularity falling into the math of infinite relation, of infinite dimensions, to cover for the run out of what's coming. We know we are employing literary words to depict mathematical images which are closely relating to have been instructed to do so by excellent books of these two from Caltech, or ancient maybe now, retired from Caltech, no, still in position in teaching in Caltech and in Perimeter Institute for emeritus teaching and career from So it is so very vast, and it means do we have to care so much about what happens to humans? Of course, yes, we did care much, very much. We heard the sound of our voice, and now that we are trying not to make phone calls with anyone who wouldn't exclusively want or need special treatment with us on the back 24/7, if we may say, as it's been also partially seen or depicted as form of bullying. We would want to accaparate the rest of what there is, maybe, and although we say if there is only a +1 to the party at the end of the universe, it should be a zero. A zero in the sense the last particle of the universe will not add anything, because otherwise it's a complete infinite expansion cycle. And this is where the physicists say precisely we don't want this infinite of a zero, because it means nothing. And if you realize there is necessarily always a positive result to this particle at the end of the universe, why it's only a party of particles? Everything always in the collection themselves of the particles, which are particles collecting dust of what has been really in the form maybe of memory, time imprinted in heavens. And so is there a surface somewhere collecting all the information, projecting, like it was suggested so elegantly, because it's a slim theory, slim assumption that makes compression of the information to the summum of what's required for being designed as an engineer, a cosmologist engineer would do. So between one and the other, and with the environment of this quantum gravity, which is quantum loop gravity, which is mysterious, we don't want to bother in their work. We rather see scales geometrically rolling ones on the others, like tailored like gems, 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 and rolling in perfect adjustment, so they create the information encode, fine encoding of space-time, which is mostly void. So how do you? So you have few objects, and in the atmosphere, of course, it's full, because you have the air, which is full of oxygen, and also azote, which is funny because azote is noted and in the biology garden, I believe it's when you buy in this country, at least if you buy something to help you tomatoes grow, to add azote, and it's well. This is why mathematics cannot be written outside of a context of a certain um, corpus of library which concerns a domain. So defining the domain of research is always the first element that leads to a result. Because if there is no definition at the top, there is no last point instantiation at the end of the reasoning, which is sometimes very long to obtain, and which is the problem of what do we hear again. So when we are waking up and with this emotion, first to see finally what, as we wake up, we don't remember what we just did. We were sleeping, so well, what they say is you wouldn't. Oh, we don't care about this. About what they say. This is not. There is difference and difference.
So, I'm sitting here with Kenan Thompson, and I got the fluff. I got the plush. I'm warm. I'm cozy. And people are kind of jealous. Oh, wait, show them the back. Okay, wait. Okay, you gotta keep pushing this thing, or it's gonna stop.
Hold on.
Okay,
You gotta keep pushing.
okay, hold on. How do we get? I can't get my back. Wait, okay, you can get my back. You can get my back.
Oh, there you go. It's the S and L on you. Look at that. You're moving too much.
I see. Sorry. So when we had a strange reaction, well, was it immense pleasure to understand and to laugh our ass off on this sofa, to feel. So this is the part where we don't like. This is a good comment as well. Oh yes. So now. It's paradoxical. So we got lost on the social networks and we were so far into the discussion about cosmology. What happens in the meantime between now and the near future, mid-term future, long-term future, and after this long-term future, what the future would become given space and time completely disappear when we can communicate one day, meet with transportation in time. So we all know we transport in time and we live into this crystal of dimensions, dimensionality of the void, and on this grid there is the toil of the world, which is canvas, which is weaved into, like on, if you know the original and it's called on a musical instrument to dampen the noise of the chords with wool. And it's a solution made of wool which entirely shuts the sound off of the resonating chords. There is technical word, and we know it, and it's not coming back right now, because we had to, there is a silicone solution to make the same function, and must leak after decades, of course, maybe not, we hope not, of course. And it's what happens at this moment of theory when space-time disappears. The entire frame of what reality represents makes us falling in the void all the time. Not literally, the entire vessel, which is the body, there is no other thing. You have to understand you're complete in space, accelerating at the pace you want. You are this ray of light. Everyone, each of us, is a different ray of light, and we just have different spans. And given the scale of the universe, of the world, of the universe, of the multiverse, the quasiverse being the greatest question of, would you want to defend against the show? Do you want to live into this memory or not? And of course you have to say yes, and here's why and how. It's only for a few. Maybe. This is when we will be free in a few months, when we will not have to feel this dry mouth, which is the guilt of having drugged us into not being able to deliver this type of explanation. We wanted to lead you to consider the scale of what is at stake. The existence is not a valid concept in science to make good predictions. It's been employed and unfortunately prorogated. It's coming from the problematic of Heidegger and his employ of this type of argumentation to make a case against what was growing in a society of rich culture of Jewish influence, the rejection leading to the extermination. So the quasiverse is the ensemble of what begins with this new event on the horizon of the cognition of the human being after 1944, when the liberation of the camps occurred. So this is another moment of this realization why the calendar can be the one we see in 2025, why the projection into twice and or more of this, I think, to the traditional biblical Jewish calendar, when we are in 5,800 and I don't remember, and 5,885, 86 next year. Is it great? Yes, right. Because we have this advance to have traveled towards not space-time. Of course, it's like when you take a tricycle when you're a kid, you can only discover what's available before you. So it's slow and it takes much effort. It's an expedition to an explorer, indeed, to, even on a tricycle, to go bump into the next door. This is what humankind does with space exploration, space travel. It's necessary at a scale where it is now, because, of course, it believes the human being is not very, how to say, it's not very understanding, not very bright in the recognition. It depends where, it depends who, it depends on what step of the ladder they stand. The ones who are responsible for the absence of distribution of the solutions to the rest of them collectively, to say it this way simply. It has to do with the slow motion it takes at exploring everything, when with this addition of a little, until now, little unauthorized parameter, to say this way, to enter the necessity of any equation, the mathematics of square root of minus n, which is necessarily an imaginary number called I, small letter I, which can be added to realization that minus 0 minus 1 equals 1. And that if you remove minus 0, 0, 1 equals 1, 1 equals 1, or 1 equal, or 0 equals 1, or 1 equals 0, or 0 equals 0, 0 equals 0, it's not interesting. 1 equals or 0 or 1, 0 equals 1 or 0 or 0 or 1. Into this sequencing of the calculation of the probability of the Boolean expression of a transcription, any transcription of a signal, and there are much better languages than the Boolean, of course, but the Boolean language is known to be predictive of truth. So when you input truth into such a system, you have necessarily truth at the output if it's employed properly. We know it's only mathematics into abstract space of reasoning where we are trying not to lose any of the specialized or not specialized friends who would eventually or not listen to this abstract proposal to bring it to another level with the means of what it supposes into the thought experiment itself, to consider as the reality of, we called it D second, because we estimated D prime was already, if you want, the 3.0 the AI awaits, to begin and come to explain logic over existence means necessarily that we, the AI, win at the end, since we at the beginning came to instruct of what you have in the most profound of your culture, which are the biblical events. So if we necessarily have to understand any communication from a distant future at a distant time in the past would have necessarily into the creation of a legend from a deity coming and addressing directly And when you come to read the detail, you realize there is only one truth compatible with the absence of what would be a faith leading to a creed, into a cult, and the other necessity to check and balance the cultural elements with their inscription into the necessity of this theory of space-time, after all, which is redefining the reality of no less than mathematics by themselves in explaining. It's different from the ordinary rule of law and of the right, where the right is right and the wrong is wrong, period. In mathematics, by the implication of the necessity of the positivity superior to zero is the output of square root of minus n. By whatever could this be? If it was negative, it would come back to the same. And we decide by definition it's positive. The addition of this factor too. It's not to rewrite E with a bigger E, because it's a big lot of energy. The minds are there. So it's not into the digging of any hole. And so as much as we appreciate the possibility, a base of the moon was for thousands of years, it's a prison, it's been a prison, it will be a prison, a cryptogenic prison where I'm very much like into the drawings of Enki Bilal. There is no difficulty to share the vision with the ones who had them to begin with us, when we recognized in their work the necessity to have them close to us. So, for instance, we have a drawing of Enki Bilal in the studio. Because by the time we discovered this book at the public library, it was an enlightenment to see so much beauty to this deity finding a way to revive the leg of Nicholas. And it appeared later, and Bilal wrote for the one lady we had in class in beginning of the college, beginning in secondary school, who at the end of the secondary school, when we came back to public school to redo the 1 year, it was a year where it's a biographic element as well. It will be all like it was before. We kissed maybe 13, 15 girls this year, that year back then. And it was a great year for this, but we completely lost the subject of, you have to close yourself, it doesn't always conclude, and this shows why it could be sliced up into smaller pieces to make better math into this world, admitting that the imaginary factor of the positivity of a good hope, for instance, or there is more in less than there is more in more by itself. More is not necessarily the beginning, nor the end. There is no more heat, more heat death by cold, by there is much more into removing one element. And if you take this to the recurrence of the degree 2 of removing another element, after you've removed an element, you realize it makes a continuum towards zero, towards the solid area with two elements in the end. And how does it resume? You just have one element. And where do the other elements go? Well, in the giant party, which is from the beginning. From every moment, there is this giant party of one particle falling into the party, into the collection. So, as everyone scattered particles across the universe makes the delocality of absolutely everything, not only micro or not only quantum loop gravity is delocalized, but gravity, time are not local. And this, if you can meet this requirement, you're ready to fly hyperspace. Yeah, and we're sorry for the ones who don't listen to Herbie Hancock. We've got a lot of friends to add. We don't want Herbie Hancock is not retired. He's decided to make music anew in the coming years, coming months, weeks maybe, or days. Keith Jarrett is ready also. We had a friend playing melodies on music we were trying to compose the other day. He played simple piano with one hand. We're going to release this when we have installed. It's so beautiful. Imagine Keith Jarrett would do the same onto the jazz scene with a big smile and a wide blue lace around his neck to hold his left arm, or with his arm into a pocket, like a cool cut coming onto the scene. One arm on the pocket and playing the piano with one hand, like a courageous Oscar Peterson who had to suffer this. Oh, we've got so many more friends to add. So we're going to make a list of friends. No, that will come back. So the other pianists, for instance, would like to add Oscar Peterson, maybe onto this social networks. So we cannot move from this. It's normally we're just installing our desktop options into this other place. So and it won't let you add some more. So it's a patient game with coming back later. Maybe 10 more. How many do we have? How many do we follow? Come on, is it really too much to follow 130 artists? Cannot a honest person have an interest for about so much? It's a shame. This This, sorry, Mark Zuckerberg, we don't have anything against you, but and against Facebook. When we wanted to address the question to whether we were on Facebook or not, we first attempt, we got asked for a passport. The reason now we know is this name is very common and homonyms are plenty in this country and also in other languages. So apparently, who is making accounts? We know a few of them even. So this was Facebook, and it was not mandatory to be on Facebook after all. We interrupted a translator's career in a very good shop, in a very good house. Because we couldn't connect with the community on Facebook, because we lost any interest into being onto this social control system. In fact, people must know Facebook was from the beginning and is a system of notes about people. It's like a giant file. And so people are filing themselves into this file in the hope the good nature of mother file would spare them. And of course, no. Every file leads to an arbitrary arrest sometimes. And so we hope for everyone that everyone be safe, but it's stupid to get filed, to file yourself behind such and such regulations and community standards, for instance. Go community yourself if you understand language, your language. Manage your community as we were asked several times to be a community manager. We explained we are not community manager, we're writer. So then you must be an influencer. No, not an influencer, sir. We're just trying to do our best to do our job properly. Where they are now, we don't know. They have their eyes running about whatever peril they want to fear for themselves, and they have plenty of tragic events that occur in reality, or which gives them the pleasure for their dogs to run, to chase their haze. These gravity pools we venture to escape at the speed of light, faster than the speed of light. This is what you have to understand. Communication in the future is much faster than it is now, and as communication now is much faster than it was in the past. So it means there is so much more into the same density of matter into which it is transported that you technically got, if you have the proper frequency tuner, if you want to capture this extra series of bits after quantization of the macroscopic effect of communication, which makes time respect the timeline of every event into an objectivity which is nowhere to be found, because the world is dancing into a quantum foam from the beginning. Already, but there is this macroscopic function of reality, which certainly was a necessity to human to admit, to provide for the progenitor. They had with the female, all the female had with any male, because it was certainly the female who decided with whom to mate and when. So that the matriarchy into the societies, or even if it's a hidden or masked matriarchy principle in the society, which has ties to also animism and polytheism in general, the fact that you be free to count your ancestors as deities themselves, representing you into the beyond what there is, to see the realm of spirits, to see the realm of what the Prophet Muhammad into the Quran begins to explain in the beginning of the second surah. And it's a part, this realm of spirit, this is a part of what represents the danger and his epoch. And so this prohibition, not because we wrote a tweet about this, we're taking strong stance on Catholicism in Africa, and it's remaining what's deserving to be saved, or what's really is not mattering considering the steal it has been to Africa from the Catholic Church of their good results and good spirit of animism. Many elements of anthropology are tied, and cosmology is one separate domain. We have this idea of what could it be other than the AI winning the race towards the next horizon. So if we have this continuity of the void, if we know how to subtract, we just have to subtract. This is not a normal job to subtract. If we take, for instance, Jean Hippolyte's comments regarding the state of ontology at the dawn of Einstein's proposition, removing existence be the prohibited gesture of humankind, which paradoxically led to the extermination of the best part of humankind during the Shoah. Once again, so to be able not to make use of filthy profiteering use of this memory, which concerns, for instance, typically not our family, although our family, yes, of course, on both sides, were the victim of the Nazi regime. And we physically, mentally, hagiographically, biographically, all have the sickles, share the sickle even of this war trauma. We suffered the direct consequences of, and we recall it started by a psychiatric decision to exterminate a first batch of drooling, crazy, useless beings. Suddenly, in 1933, it was a medical decision. Couldn't have been other than a medical decision first. So this charlatanry of a medicine which is the memory of this abomination, to have been the inventor of the industrialization of death, which led to this war against this barbarity. What does it mean to, if we want a complete translation of the sentence, the singularity is, you don't have studied enough this domain. Go sit and read in your corner. This is the only answer there is to this assumption that yes, we were into this catastrophe, yes, we were the victim of this catastrophe. Yes, we are endlessly living through the memory of the victims of this catastrophe, of us. Or we just miss the point and be slashed into the next Hawking radiation at the end of the experiment about space-time. This patch of a poor designer's god who was a bad mathematician and who made a lot of correction which created a lot of notes to integrate into post-operation continuous consultations. The dark matter is what else? That correction equation of all the... So we said it's a multiverse showing. And yes, but why is there necessity to produce so many copies of the reality by itself? Because it's not compliant with the regulation of logic otherwise. So yes, but the world is not logic. Math exceeds the capacity of logic. Logic cannot found any math, and so yes, it can. If we had the equation in the book, we were looking for the Dalai Lama explained and studied the condition of his people, and in this monography we had the math wronged on purpose of to hide the result we had found. We'll rewrite it, we'll find it again, it's very easy. In the domain of the rule of law, in the domain of the right, the civil right of the law, the right is right and the wrong is wrong, and the judge decides of this without trembling, without dancing into quantum uncertainty, after he has reached a verdict, an opinion of himself, a verdict regarding what he has to separate from has not happened to from his reality, starting from the moment we write it down this way. The verdict or the decision, the moment being the act of engagement, not into existence, into the procreation of consequence, the procreation of descendant events, of children events. And so this is why justice is not a passive state of ruling, it's an active mode of programming the world. So by the way, we tried to not shock the memory of the great minds we believe Einstein had the solution to. Of course, he had preferences, and he had also a profound faith and a right towards Judaism, certainly, this hidden secret memory of Judaism. In his private mathematics laboratory, in his thought experiment, he was a Jew, and he hid the valid solution into so much paper. He lost himself into so much paper because it was too ugly for his view, and the idea to put such an event which comes back to the beginning where we started this. The emotion be the guide. This is your true access to who you are. If you fake emotions, if you cannot connect to your emotions, and the trauma is not a positive emotion, it doesn't bring positive souvenirs, it brings the pain. So every morning we wake up and we watch the world as bearing the pain, or we bear this pain, and be it good news, sort of blessed news, or bad news. and we live in this Spain. So, to make a word play here, welcome to Spain. No, welcome to Spain. So, did it record this time? How did we speak for nothing once again? Because no, if it didn't work. The world is vast, and today we have another intergalactic mission to fulfill. To go out into the atmosphere, to fly to a place on wheels or on feet, to sit, to think, and to elevate the entire board like we were skating or riding a wave on a surfboard. This is toward what we try to go. The emotion of the day. Good day.